really cool.
Bonjour, hello, welcome to Rosbifs Rugby podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14, Pro Leader, Nationale, the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, the brilliant town cities, bars, people, food, and everything else in between. I'm Richard, and as ever, I'm joined by my colleague Rob, who is in a slightly different backdrop. Are you
I'm on the Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight?
Now I'm unemployed, I'm on the Isle of Wight. It's where you go if you're unemployed.
Unemployed or retired, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, mainly retired, but I'm definitely not at that level of wealth yet. So, yeah.
Fair enough. How long have you got off?
A couple of weeks, actually. But yeah.
A couple of weeks. Very nice. Are you down there the whole time?
No, I'm coming back. Got a few weddings, got a best man speech to write, which pen has not been put to paper on that. So, yeah, and that's on Saturday. So,
I'm sure the groom will be delighted to know that. Particularly after you put all that effort in. I'm assuming this is the same wedding, the stag do. You put all those hours of effort into making sure you could go to Bordeaux to watch the Champions Cup, but haven't thought about the best man speech yet.
Yeah, I made sure my bit of it was good fun. But anything I have to do for him, lower priority. Looking after number one as ever.
Excellent stuff. Before we jump into what was a fairly remarkable few days of rugby, even if quantity was thin, but quality and drama was phenomenal. Really. A quick apology to any listeners from last week who are Star Trek fans, because I made the error so I've watched, I think, 2 episodes of Star Trek in my life, and I thought I couldn't bear either of them. So that's apology number 1. Number 2 is I compared Yannick Brew and his beautifully cubical, shiny bald head to Dr. Spock, who I assumed was, the Patrick Stewart character.
Yeah.
The bald guy. Apparently it's not. Apparently Dr. Spock is like the bloke with the fullest head of hair you've ever seen. So I thought, after I've made that
Yannick Brew's been on the Antonio Contes.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought I'd just correct the record there so as not to cause any further offence. But shall we dive in, because Saturday was one of the more remarkable games of rugby I think we'll see for quite some time, as we kind of expected it would be up at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Toulouse, Leinster. I feel like if you're listening to this, you're probably aware that Toulouse ran out winners in the end after extra time. Just so much to break down, truly a game for the ages. Where did you watch it? Because I think we were both in a similar position whereby we were kind of dodging all notifications off on phones and contact severed between anyone who might be interested to ensure we could watch this at a slightly later time.
Yeah, I had notifications off, but I got a text from one of my old housemates from uni who messages me relatively sporadically, and it was about what would have been about an hour into the game or half an hour into the game, saying Toulouse have turned up, and I was like, I don't know. But the last time that I received a message from him on a Saturday afternoon was something like, "You must be buzzing about that drop goal at the end, Freddie Burns, what a boy," or something along those lines. So it ruined the Leicester winning the Premiership a few years ago. So I need to tell him not to text me on a So I actually went home after our game of cricket, not in the best of moods after defeat, and watched it at home. But I did watch the full build-up, which meant that I was kind of starting the game at about 9:30 p.m. And remarkably, I drifted off on the sofa during extra time.
Wow.
So I had to the next morning I had to watch it, watch extra time. I watched it for about 70 minutes onwards the next morning as well.
That's ridiculous. How have you done that? That's like,
Well, you know my
well,
capacity for falling asleep,
so
Richard.
yeah, I do. I do.
And
Fair
it'd been a long
enough.
day.
But it was warm as well on Saturday, so baking
Yeah.
away in the sun. It was
How about
just
you?
I was similar position, so I managed to we won our match, so I stayed for a couple of sort of celebratory beers, but nothing too hectic. Got home and sort of I've got this. It's a bit of a superstition, but I think I put it down to a reasonably fine art where if I'm watching something, so I watched it on the like screen, not streamed it, like cast it via the Discovery app. And I sometimes feel they're a bit guilty sometimes of like depending on who's won the match, there'll be a picture of, I don't know, for instance, Antoine Dupont like running riot or wearing a medal or something. So I'm always like trying to sort of like look through my hands a bit onto the app to see what was going on. But yeah, it literally, I think it had like the two club badges. And but what I did notice was it was like the full broadcast was 4 hours and 40 minutes. I was like, that, maybe an hour build up, okay, maybe an hour debrief. Even then, that feels like quite a long time. So I had a bit of an inkling that there might be extra time, but I guess you don't, you start second guessing yourself. But I managed to stick it through, watch the whole thing. I think I finished at about 1:30 on Sunday morning. But
Ooh.
I mean, it was ridiculous, wasn't it? Like what a game in terms of one. I think physicality was pretty off the scale, and just constant momentum swings. It was completely engrossing. I thought for a game where there wasn't that much. When you think about those two teams, there wasn't a huge amount of like ball in play, jouet, like cutting each other open. Um, but yeah, the whole thing was pretty amazing. First half, thought like thoughts. I feel like Toulouse very much had the nudge.
Well, I baited you, didn't I, on Sunday? With are
Yes.
you up to speed yet? Uh, and you said yes. I mean, it was about lunchtime on Sunday, so I assumed you would be. And I said, "Oh, pretty underwhelming game, wasn't it?" And you actually thought you didn't pick up the sarcasm over text. You were like, "Well, potentially a little bit scrappy. Not the best attacking game." And you went into full detail about what you're
Yeah.
defending this
Well,
game. So it wasn't underwhelming. It was great. And I was like, I'm being sarcastic. I thought it was
I've
epic.
heard I've heard your contrarian nonsense many times over the years, so I thought you were just trying to be cool.
um, but it was error strewn the first half, wasn't it? I think
It
Bod was
was.
Bod at half time said, neither of them been perfect. Um, and I think ultimately in the end it kind of meant that I think Toulouse was slightly less error strewn, and actually it was Leinster looked really quite clunky in attack. Talking about the lack of jouet, I mean, we very nearly had some in the first minute, didn't we? With the
Oh my
bit of
God, that
Dupont
was
magic and the offload that kind of our reporter on the ground said kind of hung in the air for about a minute. Like it was like he kind of levitated it somehow and just it
amazing piece of skill.
somehow yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, fair play is a decent cover tackle, wasn't it? But what I also thought was amazing with that was not obviously the primary bit of magic is him floating it in the air, but Malia's kick is unbelievable, and to regather the ball because I don't know if you see it, he comes from about 5 yards off the pitch, like he
Yeah.
sort of yeah, it was I don't know, it's almost like and I guess they're not stupid, are they? Like you follow Dupont with the ball and something might happen. But um, oh yeah, would have been spectacular. I think the two other probably standout moments of the first half, bar just the consistent excellence I thought of Blair Kinghorn, who was I thought absolutely brilliant in the air, off the boot, like or off the tee rather, like he was class. Was
And that was the
the
headline selection, wasn't it? That was we
It
kind of
was.
previewed in our preview videos for TikTok and Instagram that we were convinced that Ramos was going to play for his goal kicking. And I actually I kind of previewed it as Toulouse are going to attack. Kinghorn's going to go. That's quite the kind of flair. We're going to score tries selection. But actually, it was probably defensively in the end because Ramos was a bit shaky when he came on at fullback, but Kinghorn was imperious in that first half, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I thought Leinster's like kicking to compete in the air was really good throughout actually, and it started to show in the second half when Ramos started coughing a few balls up. But yeah, Kinghorn kind of nullified that. But the two other amazing moments in the first half were obviously the Dan Sheehan break off the kind of half. It's not even really an intercept, is it? Off of the pomp flick, it kind of like gets lodged in Sheehan somehow. Gas and then the turnover, which is a massive moment because that is just a try 9 times out of 10, isn't it? And I thought we can talk about we'll dedicate a few minutes to Sir Antoine in just a moment, but yeah, huge moment. I just thought we got a little bit lucky with in terms of how quick the decision was given on the clear out, but you've got to get there. And then the other thing, which I thought about this at the time, I was like, am I over-egging it in my head? But the 50-22 in the first half from Dupont, I honestly think is one of the most incredible bits of skill I've ever seen on a rugby pitch.
It's just so flat. Like, how does he? He had two in extra time as well that was similar, but like the one in the first half, it's so quick. He's from the base, and it's pinpoint accurate. But the trajectory is so flat that that's what it's not getting charged down, and yet it's so flat that it doesn't give the cover defenders any time to kind of block it off and stop it from going into touch. It is phenomenal, and I think it's an interesting one because obviously there's this whole debate about like who is the best scrum half in world rugby. He is, he's more than just a scrum half, and ultimately he won man of the match partly because he was also like a fourth back rower. But the actual head to head of scrum half play, his box kicking, like to have 3 50-22s from box kicks is just superb. Like it is excellent.
Yeah,
and Gibson Park wasn't, part of the clunkiness in attack in that first half was because there was just a little bit of, as we kind of thought, maybe a little bit of Miafu, Malvaka, Cross, Rumat getting to Gibson Park just a little bit to slow it down and disrupt it a little bit.
Yeah, and you called this out really early as well. Was the Toulouse's counter rucking game is so it's a real skill in itself, isn't it? Because I think, and the main thing is knowing when to do it. Because invariably you quite often end up making a mess or overcommitting, and then you leave yourself exposed. But I think that tailed off a little bit in the second half, as maybe with Miafu off and maybe Malvaka, who I didn't think had a particularly good game, but he was, he's busy, isn't he, around the ruck with that sort of thing.
Not as impactful as normal. But then I feel like a lot of players weren't generally. Like it felt.
I think it's just the nature of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought Doris was great first half as well, but he.
Yeah, Doris. I thought Doris had a really good game. The only thing with Doris, I kind of think, is like he's so influential, and some of his carrying is so good. I feel like he's almost. There was that clip going around, wasn't there, a couple of weeks ago of him like getting a knock on against. I can't remember. Essentially, he's just like he's in a ruck and he's kind of nudged the scrum half or the ball in the scrum half hands with a boot. They get a turnover, and it's like, dark arts mastery and spoiling the ruck and things. I thought Doris did a really good job of that, but at times I was a bit like, I feel it became a bit of an obsession. Maybe spent a bit too much time flirting around the rucks for a bloke who's, it's maybe I'm picking it. Yeah.
My thing with Doris is, and we're obviously a French podcast, so we're not gonna go into too much into the details of Leinster and Ireland. People talk a lot about his carrying and how he's really good carrying and he's got really good footwork. I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, that kind of shuffle footwork I find quite often it slightly takes a bit of his momentum away. Like he doesn't get means he makes only like a 1 meter carry over the gain line. Whereas if he went full steam and pushed off 1 foot, then and was a bit, it looks a bit indecisive. If he was a bit more decisive, he might get 3 yard carries, and that's actually quite a big difference. But I think in this, he
maybe.
did have a few carries that did kind of get them over the gain line a little bit. Um,
Yeah, still some player. Second half then, just
Nip and tuck,
well,
wasn't it?
it was really nip and tuck, and again, I mean, I think it was obviously two great sides cancelling each other out, but it was, and a lot of it again came down to Dupont. Just every time you felt Leinster were in, but yeah, because they had far more possession, territory. Albeit you felt kind of Toulouse were quite comfortable without the ball. Um, but there are two, I think, massive turnovers from Dupont in his own 22.
Last 10
Um,
minutes as well.
Last 10 minutes, like they're really in the ascendancy. And the other thing which I thought really kept Toulouse in this game was their maul defense was
Yeah.
amazing. And not necessarily something you would kind of you wouldn't say it's a weakness, but you wouldn't say, oh, they are the best maul defense in the world or whatever against a team that well organized. But it was quite amazing, really, to keep them at bay. And it comes down to, I think I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but for all the excellence of Toulouse and Leinster, a bit patchy in the first half, maybe not that incisive, but it could be having a very different conversation if Kieran Frawley, I don't know, was it a phase or two too early? Was it, I don't know, it was a long way out, wasn't it? In the grand scheme of drop goals, it's 40 meters.
Yeah. He's
Would
got
you?
he's got a lot of time, and he's got a big boot, Kieran Frawley,
Mm,
and he strikes it well, and he takes up a lot of that time. I think he should get it. I know 40 meters is a long way. You could argue he has to go a bit closer, but I think I don't know how many he's done. Like you kind of made that
mm.
point about Leo Virat Kohli the other week for Montpellier. How often does it? What is his position? I think he's only came on the scene as a 12. I don't know how much he plays at 10. I don't know enough about the URC to know if he's kind of playing week in, week out. Plays a bit of 15. He's clearly a good ball striker. Yeah, but then they didn't have a choice really. Ross
No,
Byrne did feel like for a bloke who looks a bit pretty and a bit like a chartered accountant, and I mean that in the nicest way possible, being one myself. Um, he showed some balls to carry on. Like he was absolutely fucked. Like he could
yeah,
barely walk.
yeah,
He looked like he really wanted to like win the. He looked like he was like, I've had so much shit the last couple of years. I'm gonna do everything I can to stay on here and try and win it. And I think if it had been Burn, I wonder if he might have got it. If you've got your regular kicker taking that drop goal.
yeah. Who knows? Who knows? It's buts and maybes. And then
Yeah.
extra time.
The other thing in the
Go.
second half, so a player that neither of us are particular fans of, who actually I thought was phenomenal and for how long he played, but Andrew Porter,
Oh, he was
the
class.
the legality of some of his scrimmaging, I still think is borderline at best. And Ben K actually referenced it at one point as to kind of like he's he's pushing it and he's stopped himself from going illegal. And that one that he's talking about, he's at like 45 degrees. It's like, oh, I don't know how legal that is. I don't know enough about scrummaging, but I just always look at him and I think that looks quite illegal. But there was a bit of a tussle with Aldegheri. Aldegheri won one back, but as soon as Merkler came on, Porter just, Merkler's inexperienced, and that was clearly like, right, you're inexperienced. I'm going to do my one trick and hammer you, and he properly hammered him.
Yeah.
And
They, I mean,
he played like 8 minutes into extra time, and then he was on again 3 minutes after that.
yeah. I mean, you say Aldegheri kind of got one back, but that was pretty much it. They had the ascendancy at scrum time completely throughout. Which, yeah, it's probably the one kind of chink in Toulouse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've got anyone lined up or they're back in. Merkle's still pretty young, isn't he? Those guys are going to come good, but I was surprised by kind of how on skates the Toulouse scrum was at times. And then, yeah, extra time, just as if 20 extra minutes wasn't enough. I think the first half of extra time ran to 18 and a half minutes or something with the Arnold red, which I mean, I think it was a red card. It's at that point,
tough,
I was,
isn't it?
It is, but I think it is. You've got to. It's a bloke with a bit too much verve coming off the bench, but I think you've got to be a bit more. It's one thing, kind of being unlucky, kind of where you hit someone, but you've got to be a bit more control of yourself out of ruck than that was.
My issue is that they called it foul play, and I think that the commentators were at pains to say, "Well, he's clearly binding." Like you see his arm going behind.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think the whistle is probably already gone by the time he gets to the ruck, so it's unnecessary from that perspective.
Yeah, and but that like is a huge, like enormous momentum swing because they basically got a kick 10, sorry, kind of 10 in from the touchline, about 40 meters out. Is probably would that have made it? I think a 12-point lead, and all of a sudden you've gone from playing against 14 with the low yellow card to defending, and fair play to Leinster, like rumbled up the other end, scored. And I think Leinster just didn't, that last 10, they just didn't manage it particularly well. I don't think. Got just a couple of those penalties at the ruck just felt, I don't know, just felt a bit soft and a bit tired, which was not what I was expecting. I don't know if just that, 10 minutes with 10 men after a full 80, with 10 men, with 14 men after a full 80, just maybe underestimating just what that takes out of you.
Yeah. I think, by then it did feel like Ramos is just going to, if we get a penalty, Ramos is just going to slot it. And it did feel that by that point. It's interesting that we've actually kind of skipped past it there, but the low yellow card, it felt like that was pretty much the first time that Dupont had done the kind of classic Dupont round the fringes, just randomly like getting players to bite in out of panic. And he does it, and he gets that offload away, and it's almost at low. Like he does well not to catch it, to be honest. Like, and it's instinctive. It's not cynically stopping a line break, because it's pretty much at him. It basically hits him rather than him hitting it.
Yeah.
But on the technicalities, it's a very technical yellow card, but it's a yellow card, and then that's the magic of Tony D kind of buying yourself a kind of 10-man, one-man advantage for 10 minutes, and they made it count perfectly. And actually, Ramos had been getting a little bit of stick from the commentators, but the way he kind of dummies the pass to turn Lama to then give the ball to Chocobarez is just, he makes everything look so simple and just at such a casual pace, and it's just, that's what executes the try perfectly. And like, as soon as LaBelle gets it, it's try, isn't it? But
it was mate, like beautifully worked. The only thing I would say to that, and I did feel a little bit for Leinster, as defence had been outstanding, and they're down to 14 men, and then Frawley is basically spark out the phase before. I was amazed, amazed he was allowed to continue. You think there's still something I don't quite get there around what gets called and what doesn't, because I think Austin Healey said like he's shaking on the floor, and
he's wobbling. He's got wobble on, I think he said.
Yeah, and if you've got if he's I think if there's one phase close to that ruck, that probably gets pulled up, and you don't. Who knows? It's a scrum and whatever. But that was beautifully worked. It was. I mean, I don't know what. Maybe just everyone knows the result. Toulouse come away in the end, last 5 minutes, like fairly comfortably, but it just doesn't tell the tale. I think maybe if we to wrap up a couple of shout outs to some individual performances. Honorary nod Leinster. Thought Porter, Sheehan were absolutely phenomenal.
Sheehan properly bottled a line out in the Toulouse 22 in the second half.
There was one big underthrow.
Yeah, like that is a big error for someone that's trying to be the best or claiming to be the best hooker in the world. But other than that, he was great. Henshaw I thought was brilliant. Like
Henshaw's class.
I think Henshaw's.
I think Sheehan is the best hooker in the world. That was a bad error, but
I think it's probably Nambi, isn't it? But yeah, or Malvaca. I think Malvaca's just such a good rugby player. I thought Henshaw, I always think he's pretty average, and then he'll in a big game he just has an absolute stormer, and he's like it's nothing. It's not Rolls Royce. It's not flashy. It's just good. It's effective.
Yeah, he's very good, isn't he?
Van der Fleer was great off the bench.
Yeah, amazing.
A lot of drama in that try as well. Like I thought we were going to get another Scotland-France situation.
Yeah, they kind of.
I thought no, that would be unfair.
I feel like they almost kind of talked themselves out of that happening, because I actually think there wasn't a clear view, which was the ball on the line, but the ball clearly was on the line, and I think what's his name, Tempo. He kind of almost guided Matt Carley, didn't he? To like, so you've seen it. It's always over the line. We've seen it on the floor. Let's not get ourselves.
They did pretty well as a team. I think actually, to be fair, they did say we've seen three. I think Austin said we've seen three world class teams here. The refereeing after that, to the refereeing team. Tempo for all his ills as an on-field ref, and obviously responsible for one of my favourite moments in rugby in the last 5 years with the Borthwick and Lamb gate.
Oh yeah,
you just said he was injured, Pat. He's actually a pretty good TMO because he is very clear, and Matt Carley is very. I've really swung round on Matt Carley. I know that we compare him to Troel Trainini from France as being whistle happy, but actually I think Matt Carley has got. He was very sharp on Leinster at the breakdown. I thought he was quick to make some decisions, but I think he was pretty fair. He's got a lot less panicky, and I thought as a team they were good. Piardi as touch judge as well, I thought was like intervening accurately, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
The shout outs, I mean the Toulouse shout outs, Willis 41 tackles. Leinster had 60% possession in this game. The whole game, like at one point it was 65%. Kinghorn, obviously, Chocobarez is just a wonderful tackler. Like I know he made his name in that famous COVID win over the All Blacks, where he just tackled absolutely everything. But
also he was
a brilliant tackler.
He was like in the first. I mean, it was a big loss as well, wasn't it? Archie going off. I thought
he was injured a lot. He went that first line break from Leinster. You could see that he went, like he pulled up after like 10 minutes. So he battled on, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." But yeah,
Chocobarez is basically held together by like sticky tape by the end of that as well. He was like broken throughout the whole thing. Some endeavour, and then I guess the other guy before we talk about the man of the match was who I think we both thought was unbelievable, was Rumat 8.
Yeah, I think I said to you over text, kind of, he's never quite. I'm coming round to him, especially it works in that back row. He, he's not quite Jelanche cross levels of industry, and we've been pushing for Macalou for the French team, and he's not Macalou levels of flair, but he's a phenomenal athlete, and his work rate was brilliant. Lots of involvements. There was one very flair kind of Aussie rules style pluck out the air off kickoff.
That was class.
I thought he could have easily been man of the match. I thought he was brilliant.
I'm completely with you. I thought he was the other real standout. Just almost like that sort of slightly old fashioned, like regal number 8, like good off the base, line out, kind of always seems to be with the loose ball. You know, that kind of like pick-a-mole, Harry Nordicky, tall, lies. Like, yeah, he was class. We may as well, if we're going to wrap up, we might as well finish. We spoke about him earlier, Dupont. Yeah, there's not a huge amount more to say, is there? Like,
not his. It's amazing that he can. For him, that was probably a 8 out of 10. Like, he wasn't perfect. He certainly wasn't perfect in the first half, and yet he is the deciding factor in the match because of his turnovers and some of his kicking was just phenomenal, and he's just he is the complete package.
He really is, and the turnover. It's not just a turnover in the middle of the park, is it? It's every single one of his turnovers. You could say that if he's made 4 or 5 turnovers, you'd say he's saved at the very least a certain try, and probably 2 from his like industry there alone. And the kicks as well, like the 50-22s, like they completely arrest the momentum. Some of his clearance kicks as well from restarts in the 22, like he's firing them over halfway. And to your point, like it's probably an 8 out of 10 performance, but I genuinely don't think there's another player in the world whose skill set and game is so complete and has so many strings to their bow that, you know, his service he got picked off a couple of times. Service was a bit ordinary, but he's still the best player on the pitch because he can do 7, 8 things to a level that others can't. Whereas I don't know who else is that good over the ball and that good off the boot. Like, it's just not a thing, is it?
More turnovers than the whole of the Leinster pack, which is just ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Moving on to the celebrations, which I was having avoided Instagram for basically 24 hours. Once I went back on it, I reckon I could have done a whole 24 hours on Instagram. Like, just watching the celebrations was just, I was sucked in. Like, everything on our feed was something about the Toulouse celebrations. I was like, can I repost this on our story? Can I repost this on our story? Like, Tony D wearing some Elton John-esque sunglasses. I liked kind of lifting the trophy up in the Place de Capitole in Toulouse, which is a big old square.
Massive.
It looked rammed. Coming off the bus, they looked absolutely battered. The one, as they come into the airport, Rumat's got the trophy. He looks battered. They've still got the corner flag. The Joe Takori signature move of stealing a corner flag. But they're basically in there. The other thing I saw, as obviously loads of champagne and ski goggles, and that looks absolutely class. Lots of dancing. Chocolate Barras look battered. Not only physically, but drunk. People launching themselves off the bridge into the Garonne looked quite loose. That is a big drop. Like, that's proper, like, risky.
Do you know where that was being filmed from as well?
No.
Chez Tonton, the pastis bar, and Joe Takori was in there with the corner flag.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've not seen that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Unbelievable. What a celebration. What a club. What a team. What a town. What a city.
And I fully celebrated by wearing my Stade Toulousain
hat.
And I was wearing it around the Isle of Wight yesterday, trying to show off, trying to get some attention.
Amazing. Game for the ages. Incredible. All done. Champions Cup. Well, we'll be back in a sec. Right. Whilst the world's and French rugby's attention was largely on the Champions Cup final last Saturday, the eyes of the keener rugby viewer were very much on Pro Day on Thursday and Friday night. The two, call it like pre-semi-finals, quarterfinals.
Barrage. It's called the Barrage.
They do call it the Barrage and Pro Day there as well. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thursday night, bit of a shame,
Well,
really.
my glory hunting on this podcast is not just limited to my Stade Toulouse hat. I am wearing my Grenoble jumper. Um, we didn't see that coming. We thought Dax might struggle, especially without a couple of the two Jean Baptistes missing after their red cards against Nevers. But this was a real beatdown.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shame as well because like Dax had a phenomenal season,
Yeah,
and yeah, come up from Nationale, well, I think the lowest budget in the league, and have turned over some teams all the way through. Just the like no shame, I think, in losing at Grenoble. Like they're a big club, aren't they? They've also, I think, won the second most. Like the only reason they weren't second or third was because of the points deduction at the start of the year. Yeah, just a bit of an old fashioned pace thing. Take 50 away at the Stade des Alpes. Yeah, I haven't got much more to say.
Try for our boy Jope Nicera. Charge down his pace, surprising people at the back. I thought Grenoble played some phenomenal. They looked like they just completely overpowered them. Like they played some brilliant rugby. A lot of inside balls off 10 that were just finding gaps. Shout out for one of the better named people in French rugby, their captain Steve with a double E, Steve Blanc Mapaz, who was brilliant. He had a couple of tries. Looks like they all love him. True class again. Sam Davies kicked everything. They scored some wonderful tries, and it sets up a belter of a game. But I was a little bit skeptical about. Don't know loads about Grenoble. I couldn't pinpoint their style, but they look like they're just playing some real physical pace, physical rugby with some real pace and intensity, and that looks like it's going to be hard to keep up with. That looks like it could do a job in top 14.
Yeah, I'd agree. It feels like they just feel everything about it. The stadium, city, it all feels quite top 14-y to me. But we'll see.
I've struggled to find the final number for both the Barrage games. I don't know what the attendance was. I can't work out where you find the official attendance for Pro League games at all. But they were 12,000 by Wednesday lunchtime, so that's 30 hours ahead of the game. And I think it got up to about 15,000, which is, that's probably top four in the Premiership, which is mental, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
I know it's a special game, but yeah. Talking of attendances, I don't know the final one for the Stade Raoul Barrière, but with 6 hours to go on Friday lunchtime, Beziers were at 15,350 seated, and their record seated was 750 people short, higher than that. And I think they might have got there, but I can't find an official number. But to have, I think the official capacity is 18,500. So, but I think there's quite a few standing there for that. There was definitely the odd pocket right in the corners where there weren't people, but to have 15,500 for a Division 2 game is just mental. Yeah. And Beziers have gone all out for this barrage, this phase finale. They've got a limited edition shirt for the phase finale.
Oh, I didn't notice
which I saw, which I think basically has a lot of stars on it. Very, very proud of the fact that they are, third most
wins.
Yeah,
or top league wins.
Yeah, and certainly, like going to the ground, you do sense that history. There's a lovely walkway where it's got all of the teams from the top 14 or the French Championship finals, kind of with all their victories. But this was a hell of a game. Like,
yeah,
this game couldn't have been more. Bearing in mind it finished 33-31, I don't think it could have been more to and fro. Like, pretty much any time someone scored, it changed the lead, which was ridiculous. I don't think either of Tom Raffy or Samuel Marquez missed a kick. So Tom Raffy had 7 penalties, a conversion, and a drop goal, which for a bloke that's growing his first ever moustache is quite impressive.
Drop goal was a serious strike as well.
I don't think I've seen the drop goal, but yeah,
Yeah,
he's
it was a good distance out.
I mean, we've talked about Breathe and the budget and stuff, but the fact that their halfbacks are playing so regularly together at 19, 20 and playing top level rugby is phenomenal. Like the one try Breathe did score was one of those almost a kind of signature piece in Pro Day, the chip over the top from a ruck on the 22 from Carbonneau, and yeah, they get the bounce and Bonneval runs in, but it's a beautiful try and it comes from nowhere. Like it properly catches Beziers by surprise. I love Tunku Pauta, the number 8. So he played at 6 in the game that I went to see, and he was brilliant in that. He loves hanging out wide, but I'm all right with that if you do something. Unlike, there are certain back rowers that kind of hang out on the wing and they aren't actually that good. But he scored one try, set up another with a brilliant break. The first try that he scored, he's actually got a bit of a run in, but you get Marquez just they're going right, and he just switches back left, long pass, and then the kind of ball over the top from Gaban Law is beautiful as well, like a real kind of NRL state of origin kind of Darren Lockyer, Jonathan Thurston-esque kind of loop over the top to the winger in space. Well, or in this case, Powell the number 8 in space. But Beziers look like they've kind of started playing some decent rugby again, having been a bit crap.
Yeah.
The one thing I found, like when they turn it on, like they were pretty underwhelming. When they turn it on, they are brilliant. I think I want Beziers to go up because I just think Samuel Marquez is just such a good player, and he's 35, 36 now, and I'd love to see him in the top 14. Bearing in mind Rory Cockart is still going strong for Stade Francais at 37, 38. I'd love to see Marquez get a go in the top 14 because he is brilliant.
Has he not played there before?
I don't think so. Don't quote me on that. I can get an answer for you. Did you have any thoughts on this while I find you an answer?
No, not massively. Other than I think we both thought that Breathe were maybe had a little bit more firepower, a little bit more experience, and a little bit more form. So, and ultimately they've lost by 2 points away from home, full house, pretty much. They couldn't have been much closer. But fair play to Beziers. And I think it just I don't know. As I said, I sort of I'd love to go to Breathe. I want to go to Breathe in Pro Day there. I think it's really exciting that we're down now into the last 4, and it's a team that Grenoble have been the most recent one in the top 14.
4 or 5 years ago, yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, which is a fair old stretch. So we're going to have one kind of fairly new face and possibly a pretty much a brand new face in the top 14 next year at least, which I think is fascinating. So looking ahead, then I suppose to
right. So Samuel Marquez, we've got this really badly wrong. He played for He's played for Po. He actually has 16. Yeah. He's played quite a bit for Po, actually. He also has, in 2016-2017 season, 16 appearances in the top 14 for Toulouse. 25 appearances in 17-18 for Breathe. 29 appearances 18-19 for Breathe. Back to Po for a couple of years, and then he's dropped down into Pro Day. We weren't aware of him until September when he was brilliant at the World Cup. Now that he's a kind of fully fledged international, well, not international star, but he played really well. I'd like to see him give it a go.
Well, I know what you mean. Regardless of that, like there's something about kind of your talisman dragging you up a league is, it's one of the better stories, isn't it?
And when it's a French 9, because I think he is actually French. Despite qualifying for Portugal, but yeah. Preview next weekend.
Yeah, so we've got first game is Provence.
Grenoble. Jesus, that's a tough one to call, isn't it?
It's really tough. I'm going Grenoble.
I'm going Jimmy 500.
Jimmy 501.
Jimmy 501.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you'd think a week off is going to make a pretty like could make a massive difference given how attritional the season is. It's just something about Grenoble. I don't know.
I mean, that they look like they're absolutely flying. I think the key positions for Grenoble, True at 12, Davies at 10. You look at Provence, they've got Jimmy 501 at 10, and Inga Finau, who's probably been the best player in Pro D2 this season, from what I can see, at 12. So Provence potentially got the edge there. They've got an international class tight head who was before he joined Provence playing some of his best rugby for Wales in his time in Thomas Francis. Home advantage, decent yards from Grenoble to Provence. Um, I think I'm going to back the home team. I think Provence have been the best team all year, largely. So I'm backing Provence.
There. That should be a belter. And then Beziers to Van. That's a steady old trip.
That
Um,
is a steady old trip, isn't it? It's basically opposite ends of the country,
yeah,
diagonally.
I think Van.
I think it will be Van.
I think the week off, home advantage. I think they'll have a little bit too much. Um, Not much to add to that. I think Van.
I think I just like Bezier. Yes, they played well last week, and Brive went really hard at them. Brive were dead on their feet by the end, and that's probably why they scored that final try. But I just think they've not been fantastic away from home. Um, and Van are really good. They've played great rugby all year. Again, the week off helps. I think Fortress Van as well, tough place to go. Could we see some fans red cards, a la Zach Farrens? Um, so yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a bold man to back an away team in any game in Pro D2. You've gone bold for Provence. I don't think neither of us are going to be bold enough to kind of
no,
back Bezier in this as much as I think part of it, like I said, like they're putting a lot of effort into this barrage and this the end of the season, and they're clearly trying to get back to former glories. But I just don't think away from home they've kind of quite got that
yeah,
groundswell of belief and backing and
agreed.
that energy that they definitely seem to have at home because of the history. But yeah,
Should be fascinating. And then there is another game. That's this Saturday,
Sunday.
Sunday is the first ever, I believe,
Yeah,
access match for Pro D2. So Narbonne play Montauban, who survived by the skin of their teeth at the in the last round last week. I mean, I'll admit I've seen a few highlights, but I haven't. I don't think I've seen enough of either team to kind of make too informed a decision. But I know Narbonne have been getting some big crowds. I do one. I mean, there's a week off, isn't there? But I wonder if losing the Pro D2 or sorry the Nationale into Pro D2 final against Nice is if it, whether that's a difficult thing to pick yourself up from. But I mean, Montauban have been pretty poor for a while now, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
they don't score many points. Historically in the top 14, the top 14 access match was won in certainly the first 4 or 5 years. I think it was all won by the Pro D2 team. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Pro D2 access match follows the same trend in this first instance because it is an alien thing for Montauban to be going into. Narbonne at least have now an experience of a playoff game. I think with that, some of the scenes from the semi-final against Carcassonne, like the crowd that they had in, I think Montauban travelling away to that just I don't hold out too much hope. Sorry for Montauban in that. To be honest, I think they just
Yeah.
don't score enough. They have improved, but they just don't score enough points. 2 wins out of 15 in Pro D2 away from home. I know they've not been great. They've been actually it was their home form that sunk them down the bottom. They were one of the worst home teams, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough to see. They don't have enough star.
Yeah.
It's not like what we're going to see with Montpellier coming down. There's not like obvious star quality unless Rokodaguni kind of pulls something out of the bag. And I like a few of their forwards, but
the only thing I
but
would say
yeah,
is that actually towards the end of the season, even when they lost a few, when it kind of came to the real crunch, they did start. They came very close, didn't they? I can't remember
showed some
exactly.
minerals, yeah.
And they did pick up. Did they pick up one quite good away win?
Yeah, towards the end.
I'm trying to
They
think. So they beat the end of the season. I mean, they just lost to Aurillac. They beat Mont-de-Marsan, didn't they?
yeah,
And they just lost to Colomiers away as well. So I don't know, but we reckon Narbonne.
I think Narbonne, yeah.
Narbonne.
Heck of, and that's a bit of a derby as well. They are both
Kind of either
southeast of
side of
Toulouse, aren't they?
Toulouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exciting.
And did you have a little trip lined up or a little potential trip?
No, that's a we'll do the we'll do top 14 previews first because
Okay.
so Narbonne reachable from Beziers. There are some pretty cheap flights going this weekend if anyone fancies a real rogue last minute outing. Beziers to Narbonne pretty doable by train. So if you get there, give us a shout. Yeah, it just keeps going, doesn't it? Pro D2 Nationale, it's great. We'll preview top 14 and a few Petit-Fours in just a sec. Already feels like a week off. It just feels like it's been a massive gap in top 14 action. But this weekend, what have we got? What stands out?
I mean, what haven't we got this weekend, Richard? I was looking at it earlier, thinking, how do we kind of tell the narrative on this one? I just don't know where to start. There's so many games. Like, I think you kind of mentioned it, but I hadn't even spotted it. That Bayonne can still reach the barrage, which seems absolutely mental, given they only just secured themselves safety last weekend. And they go away to Oyonnax, so they could easily end up on 57 points, or certainly 56, which is what Racing in sixth are currently on. Racing play Po. That is the big game, the Saturday afternoon game. Racing hosting Po. I don't know where this game is. Apparently the Auxerre game wasn't. I thought it was the Olympics, but I think it's actually it was Taylor Swift. That was why they. That's why they weren't at the La Défense last time out. But that's sixth versus seventh. Po a point behind Racing, and Racing have to go to La Rochelle in fifth in the final weekend. Racing are not in great form. I think Po will go there with some belief that they can get a win, and that could put them in a pretty good position for the barrage. No, it is at the Stade Abbé Deschamps again, which is the Auxerre ground.
Interesting. Okay.
So again, does that, they lost pretty comfortably in the end to Bayonne last time out in a home game in Auxerre. So I just think Racing just don't have much about them. I think I actually got asked yesterday, so kind of seeing
drifted people a bit all year, haven't they?
Yeah, I got asked yesterday who are the which French team don't you like? So who are like the Saracens, as it were? And I plumped for. I mean, there's Montpellier madness, but we love Montpellier because of the madness. I went for Racing just because I just don't. They I think I saw something in in Rugby Rama saying they're a team without an identity or something like that. Like they don't, a team without a soul, which it feels a very French criticism, doesn't it? And it does feel that way. Like they haven't got a great pack. The Poe pack is a bit hit and miss. And actually, the way that Poe play with a lot of pace could just catch them unawares early on, and they could be, Simmons MBE, the MBE kicking some goals. I'm really fancying Poe's chances, which means they'll probably lose by 30 points.
Yeah, I quite like them in that one.
Your boys, Cast at home to Stad. Cast, while they might not get the barrage themselves, they could really spoil some parties.
Yeah.
Them and Perpignan feel like the teams that could really muck things up for other people while retaining a faint hope of the barrage themselves. Perpignan
if nothing else,
Bordeaux.
Yeah, if nothing else, both could spoil a few or turn a few home matches into away ones. Perpignan and Bordeaux.
Yeah, I was actually listening to that. There's a brilliant interview with Reece Hodge on Le French Rugby podcast, and their focus is on top 8. So they're not focusing on the barrage, but top 8 for them is big because of the financial reward of the Champions Cup.
Yeah.
So we know they've got a big money signing in Manu Tuilagi coming next season. They could do with a lot of cash. They've got good infrastructure, but I'd imagine Clermont are in a pretty similar. Even though Clermont can actually get the barrage themselves, they're also only 1 point behind Racing. That a big focus for them will be getting back into the Champions Cup as well for Clermont. They go to Toulon, which feels like a tough game, but Clermont then host Montpellier in the final round. So if Clermont can get something, a point away at Toulon, which won't be easy, that could put them in a good position as well. Toulouse host La Rochelle. Now that is an interesting game because I can't imagine Toulouse will be at their strongest. I imagine from what I've seen, and it's been about 12 hours since I was last on Instagram looking at highlights of Toulouse celebrating. I can't imagine too many of them being tip-top shape come Saturday, Sunday evenings. 2 Sunday games this weekend, interestingly. An evening game and a late evening game. That. I think La Rochelle could get a win there. Another week off. We know that they're flagging, but these rest weeks have helped them. And that could really cement things for them, as that could seal up the top 5, and then it's just the 6th spot that's in the balance.
Yeah, I think that might be a bit as much as a few. I think they'll be missing a lot to lose. I think you don't want to follow up the highs by getting beaten at home by La Rochelle. I think we've also seen how good that kind of next gen team for Toulouse is. There'll be a few guys there thinking, opportunity to lay down a bit of a marker for the barrage. So I'm with you. I think La Rochelle, it certainly opens it up, but I reckon it could be a bit of a beaut that. Is it also next? I mean, someone who I don't think would have been playing anyway, but all right, I'm thinking that this weekend is the Rugby Sevens in Madrid, and
yeah,
Mr. Dupont is there. So I mean, that in itself is just ridiculous, isn't it? But fair play to him.
But I don't think he would have been playing anyway. Grau has been brilliant as well. So it's kind of Grau came on in that final. I don't know what position he came on because Tony D was definitely still 9.
Did he come in for
Came on for Malia?
Was it Malia?
So I wondered if it was Dupont to 9, Grau to 9, Dupont to 10, Entermat to 12.
Yeah, I can't remember. The whole thing, the whole last half hour felt a bit like rugby league interchange. There were so many blokes going off and on. Like Miafu popped up again,
injured. Yeah,
yeah.
The other game that would have been interesting is Montpellier hosting Lyon, but there's nothing to play for in that. So I wonder, Montpellier will be getting their GIF stats up. That is what will be happening because they are still in the negative, and I imagine in that access match they will want all of the boys, Ryanak, Serfontaine, Bridge, Lamasatelli, Simmons,
100%.
All of those boys playing to, that's not going to be a particularly positive GIF number for them. So yeah, it will be a French heavy, I reckon. But yeah, certainly all to play for.
Yeah, yeah, it's
The fact that a team in 11th is only 5 points behind sixth is just mental.
yeah, excited to see how this weekend pans out. Righto, should we wrap up with a few petty fours?
Yes.
I've got it just I've had a bit of a mare with my magic travel trip, which is also I thought that you could do the Pro de final, which is Saturday 8th of June, and one of the top 14 games, but apparently you can't because I thought the top 14 games are all on the Sunday, but they're also on the Saturday. Which in itself I find a little bit surprising because I think
All 9:05 kickoffs local time. That is
yeah,
tasty, isn't it?
yeah. I don't know exactly when the eighth Saturday the 8th of June the Pro League their final kicks off at the Stade Ernest Vallon, but also still plenty of tickets going for that and not an easy ground to get into.
4:30.
Should be an absolute beaut, and then you can go and watch Toulouse play in a bar afterwards. So
I think
yeah,
that's 5:30 p.m. local time.
um,
So that is, yeah, you're not going anywhere, are you? You're not going anywhere
no,
else in time.
never mind, never
But
mind.
Rugby Plus in the Bodega de Stade could be
Could be
quite good fun.
fun. Yeah, so I haven't got to most of my petty fours were just did you see the bloke jumping off the bridge in Toulouse? Did you see Jade Corey with a corner flag in a pastis bar? Blair Kinghorn riding the Investec elephant, not elephant, zebra.
Zebra.
So yeah, what have you got?
I've got quite a lot. I'm going to start with slightly Champions Cup related. A team that celebrated their 10-year that's just relinquished the title of reigning champions of the Champions Cup, La Rochelle. 10-year anniversary of them getting promoted to top 14, and there was a nice kind of anniversary video going around of a documentary of a few interviews with a younger looking
Nice.
and ever so slightly leaner Weenie Antonio. Still massive, still winning, and there's like in the final they absolutely demolished whoever they were playing. I think it was Argent. There's a big scrum from Weenie Antonio in there. It's interesting seeing like who was there. Like Roman Sazi is obviously now retired. Bottier is there, I think playing 12.
So good.
The other thing I saw, I'll stick with Pro de Deux. Apparently, some big money buyers sniffing around Beziers.
Okay.
Currently owned by the mayor's office in Beziers, so kind of the local tourism board, basically. I can see why. If you pumped a bit of money into that, did up the stadium a little bit, grand old club, you could have a lot of return on your investment. Next, we will go to one of our favourite things, Richard, Sia Khaleesi spotting. Who was Sia Khaleesi getting snaps with this weekend?
I saw
The glory, the
he was
glory
at
hunting
Monaco.
Sia. Yeah,
He was with. Well, I saw him getting briefly interviewed by the F. I mean, I can't stand Formula One, but I saw he was with Martin Brundle, the guy who walks around. But I did see a couple of other people there. I saw he was with the Beast. He was down in the pit.
from the Chase or Tendai and Torreira.
Both of them. They're actually really good mates. I'm going to go Mbappe.
No, it was a good shout
No.
that though. No, it was an F1 driver. It was Max Verstappen.
Fair.
Exchanging tops, exchanging South Africa rugby
Nice.
jersey and a Red Bull top. Disappointing news from what I could tell. I think Ryanair are pulling out of Bordeaux Merignac Airport from November, which
I
is not
did
good
see
for
that a
us.
little.
But
No,
yeah,
I did see that a little
hopefully
while
EasyJet
ago,
will still be
actually.
dirt cheap.
Something to do with like kind of I don't know how it works, but like parking fees for airplanes or like
Yeah.
like plane fees or something. Yeah, that's shit.
I also, with the weekend off in the top 14 for a lot of top 14s, there was quite a bit of stuff on Instagram of players supporting their local clubs, kind of going
Oh,
back to their
cool.
roots. So there was a lovely video of Cami Lopez and his son watching a live stream of one of the teams from deep Basque country qualifying for Nationale, which I assume was Cami Lopez's kind of starting club. One
Maybe.
player, another one of our. So I think it might be related to the fact that these are two of our Rosbifs favourites that we follow. Cami Lopez obviously being one. The other, Maxime Lucu, was at Saint-Pé Union Club in Regional 2. The starting fly half is his brother.
Oh, nice.
I think older brother by the looks of things. And they were winning their eighth final or last 16 game. They play at the Stade de Chateau as well, which is quite a flair
Good
name.
name. Did Maxim
But
Luco's brother have like a full Bergamasco head of hair?
no, but he was proper kind of head on upside down. He had a lovely beard.
Beautiful.
I'd still say Maxime Lucu is a better looking bald man than his brother, but that's kind of goes without saying. So the one big thing, so I texted you kind of basically as soon as we'd finished recording our podcast last week, saying I've found a wonderful thing for the Petit-Fours. So the Olympic Flame has been doing the rounds in south of France. Certainly when I was there was flags up in lots of bunting up in Carcassonne, in Prades, in Perpignan, because it was going through there. We've seen Tony D and Roman Entomac with it in Toulouse. But do you know who took the Olympic Flame through Po?
I think I do. I did see this. It was it a bit of new and old?
No, I don't know. I don't think
It
so.
was it I saw was it Debanya, the scrum
Yeah.
half, and Damien Try.
Oh, I didn't see Damian try then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my thing is Thibaut de Bagna. Thibaut, according to all.rugby, our favourite source for information, Thibaut de
That's
Bagna
how
has
all rugby.
been at Po since 1999 when he was age 5. He has played 268 games for Section Palois. Now, the nice bit of symmetry here, Richard. The reason I support Po is what?
Uh what, because we went there on your birthday once
Which
and
birthday?
your 30th birthday.
Yes. And Thibaut d'Aubagne turned 30 on the 20th of May in Po on the day that he took the Olympic flame through Po. So me and Thibaut
cool.
d'Aubagne forever twined as doing something flair on our 30th birthday in Po. I think he edges me slightly on, and I think he was certainly in far better nick on his 30th birthday than I was after 2 days of basically non-stop drinking.
Didn't someone try and throw a glass bottle at you on your 30th birthday in Po?
Yeah.
The details are maybe for another time, but I guess that probably didn't happen to Banya while he was carrying the Olympic flame.
No, you'd like to think not. And other, just to sign off on some other Po related thing, Dan Robson, who has actually been edged out by Thibaut d'Aubagne. Thibaut d'Aubagne has kind of secured the number 9 spot ahead of Dobby. There was a photo of him in Budgie Smugglers with the Bayern bull, which I have a lovely photo of you in front of the flag of, the kind of yellow background with the red bull, the Bayern emblem. He had some Budgie Smugglers on with that plastered all over them, as did his 1-year-old son, who also had some Bayern bull Budgie Smugglers on. It was a lovely
serious stuff.
I think we commented on the photo of Bayern Budgie something, or Bayern, I don't know. We had some nice alliteration in there, but lovely to see some players spending some family time and kind of getting out some local sites. But yeah, I've had a great week on Instagram, to be honest.
And still proving they're all massive rugby nerds deep down, even on your week off. Get down to your local club. Yeah, we love to see it. Fantastic. Right, we'll wrap up then. So enjoy this week's Pro Day games. Enjoy the top 4 team returning. And keep an eye out. I wonder if there've been a few live streams of the Nationale match or matches recently, the Barrage kind of games on YouTube. So we'll keep an eye out for that. If we find anything, we'll stick it up on all the normal places you can follow us: Instagram, X, Twitter,
YouTube,
TikTok.
We are at Rosbifs Rugby on all of those. Please leave us a review as well. That helps. Subscribe, all of that. Still trying to grow. Still trying to preach the words of of
The
brilliant
gospel
French
of
rugby.
French rugby.
Hopefully, yeah, preach the gospel of French rugby, and what a weekend to celebrate French rugby than after that Titanic clash in Tottenham, with the kind of the best rugby club in the world. I think we can say, can't we?
I think that's probably fair enough. Right, I've been Richard. That's been Rob. We've been Rosbifs Rugby. Au revoir.
Au revoir.